Hello, LookRecap here. Today, I'll show you a horror movie in 2022, film called Tethered. Spoilers ahead, and take care. The story takes place in a desolate forest. Here lived a pair of ordinary-looking mother and son. Because their appearance does not look any special. But the mother does a lot of things to her son that are puzzling. The boy, named Solomon, a blind child, many years ago moved here with his parents from the prosperous farm. Because Solomon's father thought it would keep his son safe. But then the father inexplicably left. No one knows where he went. The mother did not look for it. It was as if she had expected this. Solomon's mother spent her days focused on teaching her son how to survive. Due to blindness, Solomon had a rope tied to his body. The other end of the rope was tied to the wood of the cabin. No matter how far out he could return without incident. Set traps in the forest to catch prey. Need to remember every location. To have food consistently. After they get the food, the first thing to do is not to cook but to cut off half and throw it into the forest. Solomon is not sure of the reason for doing this. His mother forced him to do so. Besides that, Solomon also found the day he and his mother went fishing on the river. He was alone in the forest digging for earthworms. He felt a chain under a dead leaf. When he was about to pull out the chain, his mother suddenly ran over and took him away, and warned Solomon not to touch it. In addition to hunting and fishing, they raised goats and grew potatoes near where they lived. These were the main source of food. He don't know when the mother started to cough. The young Solomon did not notice this. The mother knew her time was running out. The day of Solomon's birthday. The mother made a special birthday cake for him. Accompanied her son to celebrate happily. Late at night it was windy outside. Solomon was with a beautiful dream. The day dawned and the dream was broken. 10 years passed in a flash. The mother disappeared the day after what was then his birthday. As with his father, there was no explanation. The mother left Solomon 3 warnings on a tape recorder. Compliance is the only way to stay safe. First, give back to the forest. Give half of the hunt to yourself and half to the forest. Second, hum that song when he is demoralized. Third, never let go of the rope. The rope is his guide and will protect him from harm. In the days of living alone, Solomon obeyed his mother's teachings, spending each day in darkness and solitude. Although skilled in survival skills, but there was less and less prey nearby. He could not fill his stomach. Barely survived with the coarse grains from the land. When there is no prey for a long time, there is a horrible roar from the forest. Solomon knew the reason. Because he hasn't given back to the forest prey for a long time, follow the sound to the border of the forest. The clash of chains could be heard. Solomon remembered the chains under the leaves that he found as a child. The creature behind the chains seemed to be resisting. Solomon feels fear. Immediately returned home and turned on the recorder. Listening to his mother's voice calmed him. Early the next morning. It was not yet light. Solomon was up and ready to see if there was any prey. He had not yet stepped out of the house. Heard the sound of goats screaming. Followed the sound to the border of the forest. This was a place he had never been before. The rope behind was not long enough. He dropped to his knees and groped. He touched the goat. It didn't feel right, and his palm was covered in blood. Instantly the goat was yanked away. It was Solomon's last companion. The prey was getting scarce. The trap is no longer useful. It was difficult to have any satisfactory harvest. Solomon could only sit and stare at the ground for most of the time. He could think of any solution. The twist came at dusk. Solomon heard a gunshot. With the sound found a hunted deer. A stranger came running in the distance. Warned Solomon that it was his deer. Solomon encountered a human being other than his parents for the first time, obviously a little nervous. Immediately pulled out a dagger from his body to fight back, but was knocked out by the other side. Woke up again was near the cabin. The stranger followed the rope and found the place. Solomon was very nervous. He didn't trust anyone. The man introduced himself as Hank. He was a hunter who lived outside the forest. Hank was surprised that the forest was inhabited. The sun was about to set. He was afraid to enter the forest. Eventually, Hank offered venison in exchange for the right to live. He was curious about Solomon's life. Hank searched the hut. He found a notebook in the attic where he kept miscellaneous things. Solomon finally had a delicious meal. When Hank asked to leave the forest to live with Solomon, Solomon refused. Because this is his home. At night, they were awakened by the sound of voices. Solomon knew the reason for things. Because of the reduction of prey, unknown creatures become manic. Hank was very curious. Didn't listen to Solomon's discouragement. Took the shotgun into the forest. Saw the shredded animal carcasses and the scratch marks on the trunk. Hank judged that the unknown creature did not go far. He searched carefully in the vicinity. Saw a man standing not far away. Then the unknown creature rushed over. Hank quickly ran away. He felt scared. When he returned to the cabin, he found Solomon curled up in bed, humming a song. There was no communication with him. It wasn't until dawn that Solomon spoke to Hank about last night's events. This was not the first time Solomon had heard it. Suspected as something to do with the chains. He and Hank went into the forest. Find the chain. Hank told Solomon to wait in place. He followed the chain and felt forward to find out the truth. Soon saw a hidden hole. The hole was too deep. Hank was a little scared. Finally, he cut a section of the chain returned. Hank saw Solomon walking towards the forest with a deer leg. He did not stop until the rope could not continue. He threw the deer leg hard into the forest. Hank was puzzled and went up to ask. There is not enough food, why do this? Solomon tells him that hunting should be done, one for the forest and one for himself. Hank thought it was dangerous. There will be wild animals appearing near the cabin. Because of curiosity, they eventually decided to go to the forest to inquire the truth. Solomon's rope is not long enough. Hank used a strip of cloth to increase the length of the rope. He could go farther. They went along the direction of the thrown prey. Suddenly, Solomon's safety rope was yanked. A strong force dragged him. Solomon had no time to react and was dragged straight away. Hank scrambled to catch up. Hank found Solomon when the towing stopped. Back at home, Solomon sat on the floor, unable to calm down. To calm him down, Hank took out the notebook he found in the attic. It was Solomon's mother's diary. Everything was normal, until the father was forced to leave. The mother wrote out why. But Hank didn't read it aloud. Why would they move to such a barren forest? It was to keep the boy safe. To keep him from being treated as an alternative by the people around him. The first person to change was his father. Fear of harm to mother and son. Forced to leave the home away from home. The contents of the diary surprised Hank. He wanted to help Solomon. Early the next morning, Solomon was still resting. Hank took his shotgun into the forest. He once again came to the cave with the chains. At the entrance of the cave, he accidentally picked up a book. Inside it was written a lot of sorry. The handwriting on the back became very scribbled. The person who wrote the words was losing consciousness. Solomon wakes up without finding Hank. He feels abandoned once again. In pain, he listened to his mother's message. Suddenly there was the sound of gunfire, letting Solomon know that Hank was in the forest. He hurriedly lassoed the rope and rushed into the forest. No matter what, he wanted to find Hank. When the rope can no longer advance, the boy kicked Hank's backpack. Solomon shouted Hank's name, but no one answered. Something had happened to Hank. Solomon could not care less about his mother's warning. Took off the safety rope and walked down. He carefully crawled forward. Finally, he came to the front of the cave. Hank collapsed not far from the entrance of the cave. He was dead. Solomon shouted sadly. The sound drew out the monster in the cave. The monster is Solomon's mother. It had become unconscious and became like a wild animal. Solomon pulled out his dagger to defend himself. But the monster had seen him. It was attacking him. The key moment chain yanked the monster. Hank used the trap to shorten the length of the chain before death. Solomon had no idea what was going on. He hummed the song his mother had taught him. Carefully, he walked forward. The monster stopped. Hummed along with Solomon. Solomon was shocked. The monster lunged at Solomon, but did not tear him. But Solomon's dagger stabbed into the monster's body. He killed his mother with his own hands. Instantly his eyesight was restored. But it became a new monster. There are many places in the movie that are not clearly explained. Perhaps the family may have been cursed or perhaps infected with some kind of substance. Let them be forced to leave their home to live in the forest. The father was the first to develop the disease. The mother was the second. Now the poor boy will be the third. He started coughing. No one knows what will happen next. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel. Thank you for watching.